One would think deaths from food-borne illness are at an all-time low today, but that's not the case. The food industry's health and safety standards still have a long way to go. Here are some cautionary tales from the not-so-distant past. It remains one of the most infamous, most tragic fast food disasters to date. A 1993 E. coli contamination at Jack in the Box caused the deaths of 4 children. Public health officials in Washington state determined that the contamination occurred at slaughterhouses owned by Vons Companies, the chain's hamburger supplier. Unfortunately, Jack in the Box didn't require testing prior to shipment, then proceeded to undercook the meat.
This plate, in theory, is good enough to infect everyone in the city of Seattle.
To make things worse, the chain had repeatedly been warned by public health departments about its policy of cooking burgers to the federally required 140 degrees rather than the state-mandated 155 degrees, the temperature at which E. coli is destroyed. Despite knowing the danger, Jack in the Box refused to change, claiming that cooking their burgers to higher temperatures made them unpalatable. According to the New York Times, as part of their desperate attempt to assign blame elsewhere, Jack in the Box claimed not to know that the state had raised its cooking standard. However it came about, the E. coli outbreak was massive. More than 700 people, all of whom had eaten Jack in the Box burgers, got seriously ill, and 171 patrons ended up in the hospital. Some of them sustained permanent damage to their health. In the wake of Jack in the Box's recall, E. coli 0157 was officially declared a contaminant in beef. Sadly, it took the deaths of 4 children to motivate change. In July 2024, meat slicers nationwide ground to a halt after samples of boar's head liverwurst taken by the Maryland Department of Health tested positive for Listeria monocytogenes. Along with the liverwurst, boar's head bacon, numerous types of ham, bologna, and salami were recalled, accounting for 207,528 pounds of meat. 2 deaths and 34 illnesses had already been reported. Damage control was intense. The Class 1 recall was expanded on July 30th, 2024 to include another 71 products and 7 million pounds of meat. The USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service, or FSIS, traced the source of the contamination to a boar's head plant in Jarrett, Virginia. Between August 2023 and August 2024, the FSIS made a series of visits to the Jarrett plant and found 69 infractions, including rotten meat buildup on rusty equipment, meat-clogged drains, moldy walls, puddles of blood, and insect infestations. In an interview with WRIC, one employee said, "I found metal chips in the bologna." Boar's Head's persistent negligence ultimately resulted in 59 hospitalizations and 10 deaths. The Jarrett plant shut down in July 2024 and hasn't reopened. Legal action, including multiple wrongful death lawsuits, have permanently damaged Boar's Head's reputation. Ecological destruction, price gouging, and child labor are just a few of the unsavory practices agribusiness giant Cargill has engaged in, and many food recalls have littered its greed-paved path. Describing the breadth of its business in a 2001 company brochure, Cargill wrote, "We are the flour in your bread, the wheat in your noodles, the salt in your fries. We are the corn in your tortillas, the chocolate in your dessert, the sweetener in your soft drink. We are the oil in your salad dressing and the beef, pork, or chicken you eat for dinner. We are the cotton in your clothing, the backing on your carpet, and the fertilizer in your field." A recall of Cargill deli meat in 2000 was one of its worst. 4 people wound up dead. The December recall affected 16.7 million pounds of Cargill-produced meat that tested positive for Listeria monocytogenes.
Don't throw up! Don't throw up!
In addition to the 4 deaths, Cargill's contaminated deli meat was linked to 3 miscarriages. Listeriosis is particularly deadly to babies in utero, and although a pregnant woman who contracts listeriosis may not die, there's an increased likelihood that the fetus will. Quantity-wise, Cargill's deli meat recall was the largest of its kind up to that point, though it would be far from the last to rattle the company's mammoth enterprise. In May 2024, Cargill voluntarily recalled 8 tons of potentially contaminated ground beef shipped to Walmart, which had accidentally gotten mixed in with the E. coli-free ground beef. The peanut butter industry came crashing down in 2009 when the dangerous practices of mega manufacturer Peanut Corporation of America were exposed in deadly fashion.
Their idea of lab and quality control on that was making sure the peanuts were the right color.
That January, King Nut Companies recalled roughly 1,000 cases of salmonella-contaminated peanut butter made with PCA's product.
Salmonella.
King Nut wasn't available to the general public, but was widely used in nursing homes and other institutions serving vulnerable populations, namely schools and prisons. In 2008, bacteria-laced King Nut peanut butter caused the deaths of 6 people. PCA owner Stuart Parnell's callous mantra, "Just ship it," created one of the most tragic incidences of foodborne illness in history. 3 additional deaths were attributed to store-bought snacks made with PCA peanut butter. Parnell's negligence and greed earned him a 28-year prison sentence. PCA shut down in 2009, but King Nut managed to survive the recall. Unsurprisingly, there's no mention of the 2009 outbreak and the lives lost because of it on King Nut's website. Hopefully, their safety personnel haven't forgotten. In the mid-2000s, spinach was a power player among health-conscious eaters, but a ghastly E. coli recall in 2006 took fresh spinach from superfood to super dangerous. On September 11th, the Center for Disease Control learned of a cluster of food poisoning cases in Wisconsin linked to bagged spinach. The cluster's geographical scope widened in a matter of days and included 1 death, prompting the FDA to put out a national warning against consuming fresh spinach. Meanwhile, investigators focused on field-level contamination at California grower Natural Selection Foods as the source of the problem.
Bacteria.
Natural Selection supplied spinach to 30 brands, although Dole was the sole carrier of the tainted spinach. Before the outbreak was effectively contained, Dole's fresh spinach caused 205 confirmed E. coli cases and 4 deaths. You may be surprised to learn that sweet-sounding baked goods giant Sara Lee also produced deli meats, and that back in 1998, they attempted to cover up listeria contamination in their hot dogs and cold cuts. Their efforts backfired in spectacularly tragic fashion, causing 15 deaths, 6 miscarriages, and 108 hospitalizations. A December recall that started with 15 million pounds of meat eventually grew to 35 million pounds. Investigators who interviewed former employees of Sara Lee's Bill Maher plant in Michigan said that cursory in-house testing and secrecy were deeply woven into the facility's daily operations. According to CBS News, employees who discussed the problem were told loose tongues sink ships.
We need, I hate to say it, but bodies in the street before we get it.
A former plant employee further explained the company's grave irresponsibility, telling investigators, plant management instructed laboratory technicians to test only for conditions that best promote the growth of Listeria monocytogenes, but not for the actual presence of the bacterium. The test results were then stashed away in a special file that was kept from USDA inspectors. In 2001, Sara Lee pleaded guilty in federal court to distributing adulterated goods, a misdemeanor. The company paid a low $200,000 fine and agreed to donate $3 million to food safety research. Colorado-based Jensen Farms had a lot of answering to do in 2011 after its cantaloupes were traced to a wave of listeria cases that left 33 dead.
I miss my dad a lot. He was a really good dad.
Brothers Eric and Ryan Jensen faced criminal charges brought by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FDA. After investigations performed by the FDA and CDC, it was alleged that the Jensen brothers knowingly implemented insufficient cleaning methods for its cantaloupe, yet shipped them anyway. 6 shipments of improperly cleaned cantaloupe were distributed to 28 states. An investigation of the Jensen brothers' 4th-generation farm revealed signs of negligence. Pooled water from dripping condensation tested positive for listeria. The equipment intended to clean the cantaloupe was not only unclean, it was designed to sanitize potatoes.
Oh, you know what? That's actually very good. No, there's a subtle hint of...
The Jensen brothers were sentenced to 5 years probation and 6 months of in-home detention, a $150,000 fine, and 100 hours of community service. It was a reckoning for U.S. farmers to ensure that the goods they grow and distribute are safe for public consumption. In addition to the 33 individuals who died, 110 illnesses in 28 states were reported. Psychotropic edibles aren't on everyone's grocery list, but thanks to the mental health benefits associated with microdosing, there's a steady demand for them nowadays. Profit Premium Blends of Santa Ana, California jumped on the microdosing bandwagon with Diamond Shruumz edibles, marketing the muscimol-infused cones, chocolate bars, and gummies at U.S. vape shops and online. Then things went very wrong. In June 2024, a recall was issued after repeated reports of seizures, involuntary muscle contractions, agitation, confusion, abnormal heart rates, nausea, and vomiting were linked to Diamond Shruumz. The FDA cited toxic muscimol levels as the cause of the illnesses. By July 2024, 2 deaths and nearly 60 reported illnesses, including some in children, involving Diamond Shruumz were under investigation. As of October 31, 2024, that count rose to 180 reported illnesses, 73 hospitalizations, and 3 deaths. Diamond Shruumz sample results released by the FDA indicate varying combinations of troubling ingredients. Among them were psilocin, a Schedule I controlled substance, pregabalin, a prescription anticonvulsant, and muscimol, a psychoactive compound found in Amanita muscaria mushrooms. On September 27, 2024, the FDA slammed Rizo-López Foods with a permanent injunction, barring the company from manufacturing goods until its Modesto, California facility complies with federal safety and sanitation requirements. Had Rizo-López run a cleaner operation, it wouldn't have sold listeria-laden cheeses to the public. The contamination resulted in 2 deaths, 1 miscarriage, and 26 reported illnesses. Testing performed by the Hawaii State Department of Health in January 2024 identified Listeria monocytogenes in Rizo-López aged Cotija Mexican grating cheese. As a result, Rizo-López recalled 344 cases of its aged Cotija. A subsequent FDA inspection of Rizo-López's facility unearthed the same Listeria strain in 2 locations and a generally unsanitary environment. Then Rizo-López recalled its entire 120 product inventory due to Listeria. Its various dairy products were sold under many different brand names, including Tio Francisco and 365 Whole Foods Market. According to the FDA, the Rizo-López outbreak inspired a new strategy for monitoring production of soft, fresh cheeses, including ramped-up inspections at factories and retail outlets. A salmonellosis serotype known as Salmonella puna, traced back to cucumber growers in Mexico, hit the U.S. hard in September 2015. At least 907 individuals across 40 states fell ill, 204 were hospitalized, and 6 deaths were reported. Public health officials determined that the cucumbers were distributed around the U.S. by Andrew and Williamson Fresh Produce and sold under the label Limited Edition. On September 4, 2015, Andrew and Williamson launched a Class 1 recall for its limited edition cucumbers and named possible salmonella contamination as the reason. That same day, Triple B Corporation of Anchorage, Alaska recalled 78 2-pound bags of sliced cucumber. The bags were purchased wholesale from Andrew and Williamson to be used in the deli departments of retail stores. 1 week later, Custom Produce Sales recalled its Fat Boy label cucumbers, which had been supplied by Andrew and Williamson. As the CDC looked into the fatalities connected to the Salmonella puna outbreak, it couldn't definitively confirm that 2 of the 3 deaths reported in California were directly linked to the consumption of Mexican-grown cucumbers. Illnesses related to potential cross-contamination were never determined.